Pentagon official says Chinese blockade of Taiwan would likely fail. US has no evidence Huawei can mass-produce advanced smartphones. Arizona and New Mexico seek stronger economic ties with Taiwan. Canada and US investigate possible India link to Sikh leader killing. Syria's Assad will visit China on Thursday. Yemen's Houthi rebels visit Saudi Arabia for peace talks. China orders foreign consulates in Hong Kong to hand over staff personal details. Oil markets' decades-long dependence on China could be ending.
Hello, I'm Johnny. Thank you for joining us on Funday News. It's Thursday, September 21st, and here are your top stories. U.S. senior Pentagon officials told Congress on Tuesday that a Chinese blockade of Taiwan would likely fail and a direct military invasion of the self-ruled nation will be extremely difficult for Beijing to carry out successfully. U.S. Assistant Secretary of Defense for Indo-Pacific Security Affairs, Eli Ratner, said a blockade would give Taiwan's allies time to mobilize resources for Taiwan, and the blockade's economic impact will be so devastating that it would harden international resolve against Beijing.
Both in terms of our efforts to support our allies and partners from developing the capabilities they need to defend themselves.
Ratner told the House Armed Services Committee it would likely not succeed, and it would be a huge risk of escalation for the PRC, where it would likely have to consider whether or not it was willing to ultimately start attacking commercial maritime vessels. Vice Director for Strategy, Plans and Policy of the Pentagon's Joint Staff Army Major General Joseph McGee said a blockade was also not very likely given the challenges involved. He said, "It's much easier to talk about a blockade than actually do a blockade."
U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo said on Tuesday the U.S. has no evidence that Chinese manufacturer Huawei can produce smartphones with advanced chips in large volume. Raimondo said at a U.S. House hearing, "We don't have any evidence that they can manufacture 7 nanometer at scale." Republican Representative Darrell Issa said at the hearing, Raimondo was in China when the new Huawei phone was announced. Issa said, "You were bushwhacked to say the least by the launch of a 5G phone."
But the environment has to be predictable, there has to be a level playing field, there has to be due process, there has to be transparency.
The Commerce Department said this month it is working to obtain more information on the character and composition of the chip that may violate trade restrictions, since they said it must have been made with U.S. technology. The chairs of the House Foreign Affairs, Energy and Commerce, Armed Services, and Select China committees last week urged the Commerce Department to stop granting licenses to Huawei and SMIC, and said it called for additional U.S. pressure and more effective export controls on our adversaries.
Governors from the southwestern United States are pursuing stronger business ties with Taiwan in hopes of attracting new foreign investments and jobs to their landlocked states. Trade missions this week have taken New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham and Arizona counterpart Katie Hobbs, both Democrats, to the self-governing nation of Taiwan. Hobbs met Monday with Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing co-executives and suppliers, visiting their plant as well as water treatment facilities.
Hobbs said her goal was to encourage ongoing investments to make Arizona a hub for semiconductor manufacturing. She has been touting that the state will be the home of a Taiwanese microchip manufacturer's first U.S. plant, generating 12,000 construction jobs. At a business conference in Taipei on Tuesday, Lujan Grisham urged entrepreneurs and leaders to consider investment opportunities in her home state, touting a workforce with access to subsidized childcare and tuition-free college.
A senior Canadian government source said on Tuesday that Canada worked very closely with the United States on the intelligence that Indian agents had been potentially involved in the murder of a Sikh leader in British Columbia earlier this year, and the evidence in Canada's possession will be shared in due course. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced on Monday that domestic intelligence agencies were actively pursuing credible allegations trying New Delhi's agents to the shooting of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, 45, in June.
Trudeau on Tuesday told reporters that the case had far-reaching consequences in international law, and urged the Indian government to take the matter seriously and help Canada fully investigate the matter. India quickly dismissed Trudeau's assertion as absurd, and said it was expelling a Canadian diplomat, a tit-for-tat move after Canada expelled India's top intelligence figure on Monday. Now some, including Canada's Conservative opposition leader, Pierre Poilievre, are urging Trudeau to show the evidence that the government has in hand.
The office of Syria's President Bashar Assad said on Tuesday that the president will head to China later this week in his first visit to Beijing since the start of his country's 12-year conflict, during which China has been one of his main backers. Assad's office said the Syrian leader was invited by Chinese President Xi Jinping for a summit and will head Thursday to Beijing along with a high-ranking Syrian delegation. Assad's office said that his wife, Asma, will accompany him to China this week.
Since 2013, thousands of Uyghurs, a Turkic-speaking Muslim minority from western China, have traveled to Syria to train with the Uyghur militant group Turkestan Islamic Party and fight alongside al-Qaeda, playing key roles in several battles. Chinese authorities also closely coordinate with Syrian security services on the presence of thousands of Chinese fighters who are based in Syria, mostly in the last rebel stronghold in the northwestern province of Idlib.
Saudi Arabia on Wednesday praised the positive results of negotiations with Yemen's Houthi rebels after they visited the kingdom for peace talks, though Riyadh released few details on their discussions to end the war tearing at the Arab world's poorest nation. The Saudi Foreign Ministry, in a statement early Wednesday marking the end of Houthi's trip, welcomed the positive results of the serious discussions regarding reaching a roadmap to support the peace path in Yemen.
The 5 days of talks, which represented the highest level public negotiations with the Houthis in the kingdom, come as Saudi Arabia tries a renewed bid to end the years-long coalition war it launched on Yemen. That conflict had become enmeshed in a wider regional proxy war the kingdom faced against its longtime regional rival Iran, with which it reached a détente earlier this year. The war has created one of the world's worst humanitarian disasters, killing tens of thousands more.
China has given foreign consulates in Hong Kong a month to submit the names, home addresses, and job descriptions of their local staff. According to diplomatic sources and documents seen by several media outlets on Tuesday, the documents include a letter in English and Chinese bearing Monday's date from Beijing's office of the Commissioner of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as well as 2 forms for consulates to fill in with the local staff details.
Hong Kong Free Press also reported on the letter, saying missions were requested to complete the form within 15 days of commencement of the engagement of any new staff members. A representative for the EU office for Hong Kong and Macau said they were looking carefully into the matter. 2 diplomatic sources confirmed their consulates had received the documents and told Agence France Presse that it was the first time local staff members' personal details had been requested.
FX Global Energy's chairman Ferrandan Fesharaki predicted at a recent energy conference that China's demand for oil will peak in the next 3 to 5 years. Fesharaki added, in the global oil markets, we have to look at countries like India or other empires to create the resilience on the demand side. Similarly, Wood Mackenzie expects China's oil demand to peak by 2027, after which an extended fall in demand for crude oil will follow. Like Fesharaki, Wood Mackenzie expects India to make up for China's crude oil demand.
Oil and chemicals consultant at Wood Mackenzie, Shi-Ching Shaw, told CNBC China's oil demand peaks by 2027 and thereafter will turn to a long-term decline as the country actively pursues energy transition, and as the general economic growth slows down in the longer term. The research director said India is set to overtake China as the largest oil demand growth center toward the end of the decade. She projected, for the next 2 decades, Asia's growth engine will be India and Southeast Asia.
The answer for yesterday was A, obliged. Jack suffered a serious injury that obliged him to give up work. Did you answer correctly? Now let's delve into the news of U.S. having no evidence Huawei can mass-produce advanced smartphones. Number 1, scale. 规模范围程度. On a global scale, 77% of energy is created from fossil fuels. Number 2, composition. 成分构成组合方式. Television has transformed the size and social composition of the audience at great sporting occasions. Number 3, adversary. 辩论战斗中的敌手对手. Elliott crossed the finish line just half a second behind his adversary. Next, we have a multiple choice question for everyone to practice. Which answer would you choose? You can write your answer in the comment section. The correct answer will be announced tomorrow. And that's all for today's Funday News. Be sure to tune into Funday News from Monday to Friday and click the link below to join Funday for free. I'm Johnny Wu, your host. I'll see you next time.